Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. We'll be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to another special live episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, recorded here in Charlotte at the Engage Summit 2025 edition. We are here with another fellow Enrollify creator. I just spoke with Carrie for a prior episode, if you're kind of following along here, but I always like to try to sprinkle this in. It's always just fun to kind of have some of the fellow creators on here to kind of reflect on their journeys, but obviously they're just like really great, awesome people to kind of share their insights as they're kind of synthesizing everything together. But Brian, if you want to briefly introduce yourself and your show, we'll talk a little bit more about that, and then we'll get into things that you're seeing and hearing at the event here.
You bet. So I'm Brian Piper. I am an AI integration and content marketing consultant, and I am the host of the AI for You podcast, which is all about integrating AI into higher education and the trials and tribulations therein.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you obviously talk about this a lot, think about it, you work on it a lot. How did the podcast come to be? Is it something that you pursued or always thought about doing? What has the experience been like of kind of becoming a content creator?
Well, originally I came and presented last year at the Engage Summit, and during that, Mallory had asked me if I would be interested in doing a Pulse series that they have around data analytics in higher ed. And I said, absolutely. And then as I was giving my presentation, they saw that I was talking so much about AI and how it helps with data analysis. So they said, we're looking for another AI show. We don't really have anything that covers the administrative side. And that's really where my focus was marketing, admissions, and advancement. And so it just seemed like the perfect fit. And my wife works for a brand agency, so we were sitting at dinner trying to come up with ideas for the name, and she just popped out AI for You, and I said, that's it. So the rest is history.
Yeah, it's perfect. And I'll also mention, because the Engage Summit was generous enough to have a bunch of copies of your book and giving those out for folks to check out. So I don't know if you want to just give a brief plug for that as well. We'll link out to it in the show notes, but just the book, what it is, what it's about.
Yes. So Epic Content Marketing for Higher Education is my first solo book. The first book I wrote, I co-authored the second edition of Epic Content Marketing with Joe Polizzi, and it basically just covers all the fundamentals of how to integrate content marketing into your general broader marketing initiatives. And the first edition of Epic Content Marketing was what got me into content marketing in the first place. So I was thrilled to be able to do the second edition of that. And then the whole time we were working on the second edition, I kept thinking, higher ed needs more of this. Why don't we see more content marketing in higher ed? This is perfect for this industry. We have so many stories to tell. So it just seemed like the natural progression of that.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's good stuff. So like I said, we'll have ways to find your show and your book in the show notes. But so, we're here at the Engage Summit. I'm just curious for you and sort of your experience. We're kind of wrapping up day one. We're almost near the end here. But what have been exciting things that you've seen so far? What's kind of grabbing your attention? What are you looking forward to? Just sort of, because I feel like it's kind of tough, where it's we've seen half of it. There's still half of it yet to go. So I don't know if it's more I'm really looking forward to something tomorrow, or today was really the main event for me. Just what's your experience been so far in terms of really great stuff that you've already seen or things that you're really looking forward to?
Well, I mean, besides just the networking and the conversations I've had here, which have been fantastic. There's so many different schools, different sizes, public, private. It's a whole blend of different sorts of institutions. But beyond that, the sessions themselves have been great. I loved kind of the first session. The keynote was really an introduction to kind of the history of AI, and it gave you a sense of the incredible scale that we're seeing right now, the advances that are happening as we speak, and then really seeing how Element is focusing on integrating all those changes as they come out, adding new capabilities and features. And they really, every session so far has really touched on the next step, which is these AI agents. So being able to, like right now, we've got, parts and pieces of those. We've got different like custom GPTs and automations and different things that we can start manually kind of string together and cobble together. But once these AI agents come out, which all these foundation model companies are working on and racing towards, we know that we're going to be able to automate complete workflows, and we're going to be able to decide where we want to stop and check on the process along the way, how much control, how much access we want to give these tools. And the more data, the more access we give it, the more it's going to be able to automate complete parts of our workflows, which is really going to give us the time that we need to focus more on the strategy, on the people side of things, on the students, on the alumni. So I'm really excited about the potential that we see in front of us.
Yeah, and I think that it is something where I guess maybe not so much in some prior moments, I guess, as much as I'm kind of aware, but that idea that like it feels like AI is something where like there's a lot of sort of like building in public or something, it's the idea like we're definitely iterating. We're kind of like, I think like the kind of base version that we've kind of had proliferate a lot is just sort of like more sophisticated chatbots. It's just completely like, it's generative, kind of responsive, whatever. And like, it's doing nothing unless somebody tells it to do something, and it's like, cool. Yeah. And we had chatbots before, but now they're even better. And like that idea of like, well, where we are now in efficiencies, like we're seeing that there is really a path being clear to get even better from where we are now. And that I think, part of what I've been kind of discussing, kind of thinking about a lot with people so far at the event here is like that, AI as we see it today kind of came to the scene like really kind of fast and furious. And I think there was a lot of like, skepticism or kind of concern, but that like this sort of like making spaces and places like this available and all that and sort of building in public or sort of like this is how we're doing it and what sort of goals we're aiming for and stuff. I guess my very optimistic and hopeful sort of mindset is that like that helps people to kind of be like, okay, cool, yeah, like I understand this, it's exciting to me, like I could see myself using that or whatever else. Like it kind of will help sort of shepherd people towards sort of like this not feeling like so much of a sort of abstract kind of technological boogeyman or something or whatever. It's just sort of like, well, let's kind of like discuss how and why, and that idea of even how you were kind of framing it, that like we can put the guardrails in place of like it goes to here and then we have to check it and then it goes to whatever. Like we're making this and we're kind of orienting it so we can have it, have as much or as little access as we decide and that sort of thing. So I don't know. And I think just to kind of build off this, like, I don't know what your kind of AI journey has been like, because I've been kind of asking everybody to kind of share their stories of like, were you skeptical at first? Were you kind of an early adopter? Like, what was that like for you? And I guess, and like, what resources or things did you use to kind of bring yourself to a point where now, like, obviously you're being generous to kind of help other people along in their journey to kind of create content and all that. Like, what was that like for you to kind of get to this point?
So I've always been like an early adopter of technology. I'm not too worried about change. I'm always interested in changing, not just for the sake of change, but when I see an opportunity for something to make my job easier or to automate certain tasks that I don't enjoy doing, I lean into those. I got started doing SEO back in 1996 because I saw that as a tool that you could use to help more people see your content. And it was really all about content and getting helpful information out there. And so, when AI came along, I started playing around with Midjourney and DALL-E back in early 2022 and, saw the capabilities of those just on the graphic generation side. And then when ChatGPT came out, I was like, this is a game changer. This is a way to scale and, allow us to do more than we are used to. It's really democratizing knowledge transfer. We don't have to wait or go search to have somebody else tell us something that we think is probably what we asked. We can just directly ask the question and get all sorts of knowledge back. And then, of course, when deep research came along, now we're starting to see these reasoning models that are really able to take it to the next step and not only provide us the answers to the questions that we ask, but suggest other questions or suggest other topic areas that might be of interest or might be useful to us based on the questions that we asked. And now based on what it remembers about us and knows about us, it's like, oh, well, since you're in higher ed, you might also be interested in this information. So Yeah, always an early adopter and fascinated by the capabilities here. I think we've seen so many of the, dystopian views of what AI could be. Hopefully, that will give us some, foresight to be able to plan and predict, what we should and shouldn't allow these tools to do. I say it all the time, these tools can do a lot of things. It's up to us to decide what they should do. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the technology, and I think, from especially looking at my kids, I've got 6 kids four of them are in college right now. The impact that AI is going to have on their lives and on the jobs that they, might be getting, that might be available for them when they get out of school, I think it's going to be a different world for sure.
Yeah, and I think a big difference for me with AI is I feel like, in this moment that we're in with it, like there's been a lot of acknowledgement of like, well, the more we use it, the better it gets, which has been like a truism of technology, the idea that you're going to have like beta phases and, people are kind of like, acknowledging that it's like not perfect yet. We want you to kind of play around with it and kind of, figure out all the bugs and stuff like that. And like, I just know for me, like I think of it mostly with like video games and stuff. Like you usually have that. I'm like, I don't want to like play with this like incomplete thing or whatever. I want it when it's done. And even that, like sometimes it's like, I'll wait for like the first patch to come through and then I'm going to like actually like, play it. But like, I guess that acknowledgement of like, we're wanting to welcome people to use it with the knowledge that like it's just only going to get better from here. So the more that you sort of are, I guess in a sense kind of like stress testing it, the idea of like, well, I'm using it more and for more different things and it's just going to just kind of iterating from there. I think it's just an interesting sort of paradigm, I guess, just like technologically, I guess, that there's sort of like even much more of a front facing notion of like kind of welcoming that versus like sometimes like betas and things are just sort of like closed and whatever. It's just like, well, we're not having everybody like get in here to do this. Like, so I think, yeah, it's that idea of, acknowledging maybe kind of the potential pitfalls and things like you're saying, like kind of trying to solve for those and just kind of making a very clear request of people to play a part in making it better. I think it's just that there's kind of a good vibe there, I guess, with sort of just that idea of, we're building this, we kind of set the guardrails and we can all sort of like work together to make it what we want to and then make it just better. So I think, I'm just excited for like all the things that you mentioned. And I think what I've kind of highlighted some other people, and I'm going to put this to you, I guess, as we're kind of starting to wrap up, but like the idea of what I know is kind of in some of the sessions here is that the integration of AI, the continued sort of expansion of it and sophistication of it, I think is going to force the point of institutions needing to grapple with like, okay, we need to create more experiential learning opportunities for students. Like some of these things that I think people have kind of talked a big game about of like, well, we need to help students build social capital. And it's like, well, that's like even much more important now, knowing like where we already are, where we're heading for the future of like what today's students or the world that they're going to be entering into and stuff. Like if we can kind of be planting seeds for those things now and just kind of planning to make that pivot and shift and everything, like, I don't know. I think it's just interesting to kind of see that kind of unfolding. And I'm curious, I guess, just maybe as you're interacting with the folks that you work with, like, I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, this is a change. Change is hard. And that, like, I think we're all going to need to kind of have some help and work together to get there. So I don't know, like, that part of like the change management of all of this and how that's kind of like worked with you of kind of helping people along in their journey. Like, what has that experience been like for you, I guess, of kind of being, the person who's helping to facilitate the change?
Yeah, and that's one of the things when I work with other institutions or businesses to help them start integrating AI. That's one of the first things I tell them. I was like, this is not a technology adoption project. This is a change management initiative. This will fundamentally, I mean, it's great to use AI to make yourself more efficient and to take your existing processes and make them work better. But the true power of AI is changing the entire way that you do your job. And I think, figuring out how to collaborate with AI to take advantage of the full capabilities that it offers, while at the same time being able to, use all of your human input, the emotional connection, the storytelling, your judgment, the critical thinking, all the things that we do that AI can't do. And I think one of the things that has really been helpful to me is having a network of people, a community of people that I can talk with and share information with, because I mean, we've seen it. Even the engineers that are creating these tools don't really understand why they work the way they do or what the full capabilities of them are. So if you're trying to figure AI out in a silo, you're going to be much less successful as opposed to whether you're trying to work with a group of people or have a bunch of collaboration around how to get the most out of these tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, because I think I was like processing something out loud there. And I think like in the simplest terms, it's the idea of like AI enables its full potential if you are creating sort of a culture shift to go along with it, I'll give you the final word. If there's anything else, just kind of giving everybody the opportunity at the end of each episode to wrap it up of just like writ large, we're in a turbulent time for higher ed. From your point of view, advice that you would give to higher ed leaders to help navigate this moment? Because I think AI plays into it, that the way that we can kind of use it to enable higher level strategic thinking that can help us to get above the fray to kind of find a way forward. But so anything on that or just other general advice to help navigate this moment?
Well, I think we're in a really interesting period with higher ed right now because higher ed hasn't had major changes to the way that it functions in a long time, hundreds of years probably. And I think right now we are facing more obstacles in higher ed than we ever have before, whether it's the perceived value of higher education or whether it's the political landscape or whether it's funding, the enrollment cliff. I mean, so many things coming at us right now. And I think that we are always being asked to do more with less. And if that's something that's important to any institution, AI is a great way to start figuring out how to do that, how to take all the expertise and knowledge that you have and scale that and democratize that across your entire campus and institution. And I think the key with AI is just to get started. I mean, right now is the time to start experimenting, start playing. These tools are changing and evolving so fast that if you don't get on board now, you're going to be playing catch up down the road.
Yeah, I always love to say that. I'm just like, start somewhere, and go from there. Because I think just like, kind of just, I feel like it's just the classic like scientific method, like do something, test it, analyze, and then kind of iterate from there. So I think great advice, great perspectives. Appreciate you sharing them all for this episode and taking the time out to do this. So, and again, we'll have ways to get up with you and all the things we mentioned in the show notes, but just really appreciate you for doing this episode with me.
Thanks so much for having me on, and I appreciate all the great content you always put out.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Key podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify network, home to higher ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly in your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.